Yeah, soft boxes. That's what they call them. Crackheadsville. Yeah, dude, I just like let my dog out. I just wanted to smoke a cigarette on the front, and there's this fucking African American transgender walking in front of my house, and dude, Jerome for some reason jumped the fence and started barking at her. It was very weird. I was like, "What the fuck, Jerome? Like, why the fuck did you do that?" I just felt so bad. It was like she was just like so like embarrassed or ashamed or like she just felt like I don't know. Oh god, it's fucking shitty. But yeah, there's all the crackheads in front of the house too. So I think that's why he can't tell.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, it doesn't like black people. It's like they're dark. You can't see their face or something. I don't know. It's a fucking racist pup.
Huh. I've heard of that oftentimes in dogs, that they have certain reactions to certain races. But your dog's exposed to a lot of different races in the neighborhood too.
Yeah.
So
it was just like he
it's
opens the door.
a visual thing or something. Huh.
Oh, that was weird.
All right. Huh. Racist dog. Mikey, of course. All right. So we're here with the first ever episode of Artphx.org podcast. I'm your host, Nathaniel Jack Green, and we're recording live for you brainy weirdo listeners from the topmost shipping container in the Grand Triangle of downtown Phoenix, also known as Crackheadville or the Grand Triangle, Roosevelt Row West Side, Containers on Grand, that's where we're at. And I'm here to introduce you to the wonderful world of art that's happening here in the Phoenix area. And I just realized that, writing this and then recording this a different thing. Like I can't not introduce Mikey B sitting here next to me with some sort of monologue in the way. So Mikey B, everybody. Yeah, so we're figuring it out as we go along, but again, the work for Artphx and the collective that are listed on there is meant to identify transformational art experiences from some of the experiences that I've had here in the Valley. So just want to bring attention to the intention and intentionality of art and the potential for transformation. And you put those two together and you could potentially use art as a healing tool, because I've known that I've had some experiences like that. So how is it that works, you ask? Well, it's not always clear as to what art has meaning-wise at all sometimes. But what I've found in my experience is that over time, art has a way of making more sense. And I use the music medium to specifically refer to this because I hear something one year that doesn't sound appealing to me at all, or maybe has a complex melody that my brain hasn't yet experienced. And then years later, the same song somehow sounds fresh or familiar, or appropriately familiar, as I referred to it. So it's like part of this Bayesian predictive coding psychology model. So it's like a math algorithm, but the idea that your brain runs this sort of algorithm has to determine if something is familiar. Do I know that? Or is it new? And then if it's new, create a new model. If it's if I know this, then it's got to like update it and then sort of put it away. And all this happens in like this synaptic second in your brain. So it's incredibly challenging to prove, but there's a lot of models and research being done on that. But anyway, I find this phenomenon has often hit me with the artist Black Francis. He's also known as Frank Black of the Pixies and that. But his solo stuff with Frank Black and the Catholics in like 2000, I was barely able to tolerate. And then now years later, I listen back and I have a real deep appreciation for it even. Because it was just, challenging for me at the time to appreciate or something. But anyway, I think it's why, and I'm kind of drawing some correlations and relationships here as to why the Unexpected Gallery has been so integral into our local culture and community here in Phoenix, because it's this sort of, new model or challenging. But I also just want to speak highly to that, to the gallery, as Ben and John and Julie in the first early days assisted us with the Phoenix Tribal Nights. And then that's how I was introduced to them. And then we got to fly the giant dragon puppet there. It was really cool. And we also co-produced the United Nations Breathe for Peace event with Daniel Hertz. And we saw many different transformations during this time. It's really rad. And then later joined a gathering of people on a weekly basis for Taco Tuesday mural painting. And all of this is important because it's like a setup to introducing our first ever guest to the show, Mikey B. Mikey was resident artist at Unexpected Art Gallery, and was one of the first artists I was introduced there to with Francisco. And Mikey in his way was like, "Yo, I'm Mikey B." I was like, "Yo, I'm Nathan G." And yeah, I think we've been homies since. So it's great to have you, man. I know you're a busy bee. But wanted to catch up and get to know like what's cooking with you, man. What are you doing now? I know I saw you were doing some blown glass stuff out at Mesa. Why don't you fill us in a little bit on what's new with Mikey B?
Well, yeah, freaking, I was part of Unexpected Art Gallery since last year, about March time. And I basically found my way in there because it's just such a cool place to be. So big, so much room for activities. But during that time too, right at the beginning, so I was introduced to Ben, and I just loved hanging out at the place for so long. Such a good environment. He's so encouraging of anything.
Yeah, Ben's a really cool guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just over time, things, the place grew, everything was great.
Done a lot of stuff there, man. The Masked AZ, lots of events. I just always saw you running around with some like solution to a problem, right? Whether it was a ladder or a screwdriver or a bag of ice,
yeah,
you were on it, dude.
I was hosting. I was the host. So I basically was there to, basically to fill people's glasses. Ben basically was a mentor in a way of showing that the space of Unexpected could just grant you anything you wanted. If anything didn't happen, it was because it was on you yourself that didn't let it happen. There's no way Ben or myself or Unexpected shot anything down. And so it was my goal to continue that after Ben left. And during my time there, I was approached by basically like 4 different people that all wanted to paint. They wanted some place to paint. And that's when it just hit me, just like, oh, I think I know of a place to paint. Like right outside. How about let's meet up Tuesday? You guys do anything Tuesday? Sure. Yeah, let's do it Tuesday. Bring taco ingredients and your paint. So it started off with just 4 of us, and then the next time more people showed up, and it was just so successful, so much fun. We just continued, but at the first couple of times, I was painting. To then after, I realized like my my responsibility there, my service, my as me as a host is to me being of service to artists to allow them to participate in art making activities, because I myself was doing it for so long. My mother was the teacher of the Boys and Girls Club growing up, Holmes Boys and Girls Club, and I got to really learn the freedom of the reward of art, and I wanted to share that. It seemed like it was like a calling, like there's a calling for people that want art in their life, whatever art is. I've come to realize art is almost freedom, and so it was my goal as host of Unexpected to grant that freedom to people, and it was a lot. It took a lot of energy, and it's not sustainable.
Oh, no. Yeah, that is a lot of work, man. It's being a facilitator. In many respects, you're facilitating the opportunity for them to express themselves, right?
Yes.
It's like you're sort of really just making sure that there's something under their feet as they're right,
Yeah.
right, or that they're supported, and I think that it shows, and it's given a lot of people new opportunities as a result. I think us just sitting here and talking about how great was to have been supporting us, and John, frankly, and opening that space up, and and all of those people who were involved in that's great. So well, cool, man. It sounds like you're evolving and changing and growing and doing even more new great work. This glass skull stuff, man, it's just like candy. I want some, and I'm glad you brought some over. Thanks for sharing. That's really beautiful. So did you just blow that, or?
Yeah, it's all hot sculpted. Made that last week with two of my amigas from down in Tucson.
I should show a little bit of close-up stuff.
Yeah.
Check out that glass. Yes.
Yeah, the bowl is as a symbol of economics is bull rising.
Bull rising.
And so I see the power of symbolism in art, to paralleling that's happening in the physical realm. And it seems like a lot of people that are attracted to the bull are all on the upcoming in their life. And so it's very interesting. I wonder if I were to make bears, that it wouldn't sell anything, because people that are on the downcoming of life aren't going to buy art. Right. So it's like, it's funny. It's like, but no, it's just, whatever.
Yeah, no, there's stories of either fantasies of what you wish reality were, or realities of what you perceive it to be. But either way, it's a story, right? So you're really telling a lot of story through that. I actually had mentioned a bit of your Southwest flair and flavor in your bio. I still have a couple parts to fill in there, but I think this Calawayan is the way I called it.
Is that Cal part of California?
Yeah, California.
Oh, God, disgusting.
I don't, I guess it's more Arawayan, huh? Because you're from Arizona originally. You are a native here.
Fourth generation Phoenician.
Yeah, one of few out there, and representing well, dude, with the Dutchman look and style. You've always got a lot of Arizona style, a lot of Southwest style going on in your stuff, man. It's pretty cool. I think I put it couldn't be any further south of a border for you and your style of work.
Hell yeah, repping it. Thank you.
Yeah, so you have any favorite art memories from childhood that you recall, like a favorite first or anything, making art with mom? Or
well, at the time when I was introduced to art, I was brought up as an athlete, and for me art was something my mom would encourage me to do, but at the time I felt like it was forced on me. I was a rebel. I didn't want to do something just because my mom said so. So I didn't see it as a positive aspect of my life, being grown up playing the piano from when I was 4 to 16. But now I can get on the piano and I can play Backstreet Boys, I Want It That Way, and make the girls, weak at the knees. But That's not to say that's my favorite part. My favorite memory as a kid. I think my favorite memory, is it's reminded to me, today, of when I met a guy named Toon, who's actually a refugee from Vietnam, where I met him and met the building of the crane origami when I was like 6 or 7 years old. And my mother was, new Toon and had me come to this workshop. And it was the first time I built an origami, but part of the origami crane process, I was ignorant of the meaning. I wasn't aware of war, didn't really know what, peace was, didn't really care. I was 6, 7 years old, in a suburb of Phoenix, Arizona, wasn't really directly affected or aware of its affection. But after the crane building process, Toon told me, or asked me if I would take the crane and put it into this container. And with that, I'd be giving my crane away to someone. But the thing about this container is, as you turned it in as you put the crane, after you put the crane into the box and you crank the lever, it goes and the crane falls back into all these other pools of cranes, that another crane comes out the bottom. And so it was this whole exchange of, giving and receiving. And I feel like that has kind of stuck with me and reminded me that through art, whether it's teaching, whether it's me myself, there's always some kind of exchange with art, whether it's with another individual, myself, or with the spirits. It's a very powerful concept that was taught to me at a young age that I feel like, I'm an ambassador to, always for the exchange. Because if you were to keep all your origamis, you'd have a shitload of origamis in your room. But, there's some kind of exchange that goes on, and it's very powerful.
Yeah, I see that as a representative of the duality of nature, right? So in order to have something, you have to not have something too, right?
Yeah, yep.
The exchange. Cool. So what are you promoting right now? What are you working on at the moment?
Gosh. Well, what I'm working on right now is something similar. I forgot the name of the director Dali was doing this with, but it was an exercise about activating the subconscious. And through Dali and this one director's experiment, one would say a word and the other would say another word. And it would just go back and forth. And it'd be so fast that you wouldn't be able to consciously think about what you're going to say, that a word comes out. And after so many, you reflect upon it and you hear that message. I believe that right there, that message is coming from the subconscious. And so what I'm doing with that is I'm relating that to the collage. And I've been collecting all these magazines up from the Times, from the 30s, 40s, 50s, to then the Playboys of 70s to today, and National Geographic, and Juxtapose. And taking all these collages, all these cutouts that just feel right for me. They just are cool. Or just I have some form of relation to it, and I take all these pictures and I'm putting them together that just feel right, and then I take a step back after so long. And then I look at what I've done, and that's when I start piecing together the symbols into a narrative. And then after like this kind of new thing comes to me, then I can start, then it's like there's like just magnets on my hands pulling these other images and just coming together, and it's really fun. So that's what I've been screwing around with right now, and I'm trying to take those processes to a grander scale of sculpture, because sculpture is just so much more fun. It's so much more, there's so many more obstacles in fabrication of objects as opposed to just laying 2D images onto one another, that I love the challenge. I love trying to, go down into the belly of the beast just to poke it, just to get a reaction and see what happens with that. And then, they'll get out, hopefully. Get that rope around my waist so I can follow it back out the tunnel. But yeah,
Start a fire, make a sneeze.
Yeah. So conscious making art, to understand stuff beyond what I know.
There's a cut-up method that William S. Burroughs used, right? I always thought it was a little psychotic, the idea, like, no offense, because art is psychotic at times, but cutting up a bunch of words and, just kind of throwing them, and then sort of, pulling out various different messages that are in that new context. And then part of that's your projection onto those words too, and what kind of meaning you're giving to how they fell. It's fascinating space, man. Cool. It sounds like some new philosophy artwork coming from you down the line.
Yeah, it's been real fun. Freaking it's very like witchery, like shamanistic kind of like unknowingness, but I'm just trying to learn a different way of how this world works.
Yeah, journeying into the unknown. Be safe out there.
Yeah.
Because it can be treacherous out on the cliff sides,
Living on the edge.
That's right. You got to do it. Well, apparently I don't have my controller anymore. I kind of just threw that out the door. But any suggestions? I think I got maybe a few too many questions here, Mike. But any suggestions for our Phoenix community right now?
Shoot, man, keep going. I mean, Phoenix so I went to school in Hawaii, at the university after high school, and then that took me to the Northwest, and then to the East Coast, to then Japan and Europe. And after traveling the whole world, I'm really stoked to be here in Phoenix, Arizona, just the Four Corners alone. There's so much room, again, for activities. But then also there's just so much room for evolution. And with that, there's lots of unknowingness things, something similar to like the punk rock in LA and DC and New York in their times of the 80s and 90s. I think it's happening here right now in Phoenix, where there's this cry for culture. Because there's just so much hybridization of cultures here that we're kind of really unsure and unknown of ourselves. But through being persistent, being present here and now in this moment of, this culture creation, we will come out. But to have yourself heard, I believe, is the hard thing, because there's so much noise out there. But if you just keep doing the same thing over and over, what you believe in is truly what you believe in, then the strongest will survive. You will come out as an artist, and you will be a form of representation of this time, of this location.
I have to acknowledge that I think Phoenix is more of a platform right now. It has a better voice.
Yes.
And so the opportunity is in how you make your voice heard and what your message is, in many respects, right?
Yes.
It's been coming for some time. We've sort of been cultivating doing a lot of work, and I again acknowledge your work in, getting us to a point where we have some safe spaces too are really important. I think we could be threatened by some of the space usage in town if we don't acknowledge and reserve these spaces. That's why I think Unexpected is still an important space for us. They do hold that space for unusual, unexpected, obviously, but unanticipated events sometimes that just need to happen. They have to happen in order for the community to sort of move through something almost. But yeah, and we're also so close to the borders, right? So we have so much focus on that aspect at the same time. So those are some important messages that need to be heard, and I know are being made, and we have a lot of community out involved in, conveying those messages, I think, and speaking to them. And I know there's also been a lot of cross-communication between various different tribes, if you will. So we've got some positive things happening here in the Valley. So
yeah, I was actually just looking at, I got given this art artist call out for, it's like this water project, focusing on the Hohokam tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And I met with a very respected, I guess I could call him elder, today, Marco Alabron, for lunch today. And there's just so much politics. There's such a deep, there's so many levels of shit that's happening in the city, with ASU, with all the tribes that have been here for so long, and all this money that's it's going around or not going around, and this acceptance of this is the people here now. Like I totally respect everything of what you guys went through, or what your ancestors went through, but there just has to be a time where you just kind of have to let go on some things, hold on to certain other things, but don't let that not let you advance, because work with us, work with me. I'm trying to work with you,
Right.
let's partner up, please.
Yeah. And there's a hesitation is probably the worst part.
Yes.
The hesitation to even want to continue the conversation.
Yeah, let's not have any of that.
Yeah, clouds up pretty.
Yeah.
No, but I totally follow that too, and I think it is an important conversation to be had. Maybe not necessarily in this context, but
Yes.
but in the sense of art and the representationalism, the communication, like you're saying, the control narrative, I think is important to a certain degree. And if there is more message to be heard from the elders and from those tribes, then that needs to be spoken. However, I do know that of the hesitation firsthand as well from kind of cross pollinating events. When we were doing the tribal nights, we had the Mesa Powwow event where we had a bunch of people out playing drums, and the powwow tribes were all doing the powwow. We kept distance, and they knew we were out there, and there was actually some youth, some of the dancers, who encouraged some of the elders, hey, why don't we let them come play with us? And there was reservation hesitation. So this is in that sort of cultural context even. And some of the youth said, hey, wait a minute, I think, we speak of, moving through the past, or being, how to say, not moving through the past, but rather being good people, then we need to reach out to those people as well. So I want to say it was Duncan, but it may not have been. Anyway, there was then some crossover, and so some of the youth came over and played with some of the other dudes, played some drums, and there was sort of some conversation about it at least. But it's a really challenging thing, and you have to go out year after year after year to establish the rapport and the relationship with those people, to have a form of trust to build on. That probably won't make the cut, but we are recording, and we'll kind of transition. Yeah, because you got 15 minutes too.
Half hour.
I think we're wrapping it up here, man.
Yeah.
I wanted to say it's our first episode of Artphx.org. And
Wait, I wanted to say my favorite quote.
Oh, you want to say your
I
favorite
actually
quote?
thought about it. Yeah.
What is it? Yeah.
Because we were talking about transformation. I might have told you this one before. The quote from John Adams.
No, I don't know.
So this idea of transformation, and just going from my grandparents to my parents to myself. John Adams wrote this letter to his wife, and wrote plenty of letters to his wife, but this one specifically talked about how he studies war, so in turn his sons can study business, so that then their sons can study art. So the transformation through times, and the intentions of one's life, one to study war to dominate land, to then the next generation can create, a system, a city, economics, business. So that after you get the systems in check, then you go to a higher form of self, spirituality, and I think that is through art. And just like, you and myself, it's like we can only focus on art after our business is taken care of. And the only way we can have business is if we actually have a place to do business. It's very, we're very fortunate over here in the land of the U.S., to have, soil to then create systems on that actually work, to then be able to then read a book, sculpt glass, do conversations like this. That was a good one.
Standing on the shoulders of giants, Mike reminds us it takes many generations to cultivate a higher standard of living, perhaps.
Yes.
Right? To be able to maybe appreciate some of the finer things versus struggling once you've established. And that's a great reminder to your heritage and the legacies that others have left for us and that we'll leave as well. That's often a challenge, is to keep in mind what legacy you'll leave behind. What does it look like 100 years from me being here? And maybe you don't want to, and that's just a part of your humility, is to sense yourself not that important. But I like to recognize my son's going to be here, I hope, a lot longer than I am. And I hope to leave him in a better state than, the alternative, at least. And we've been very blessed. I've been blessed too. Mike, it's been a blessing knowing you, brother. Appreciate you coming and joining on the show. And
good luck.
Look
with
forward
this,
to
man.
seeing more of your art on
you.
Artphx.org, and check out his profile, his bios, and some of his work. He's going to be offering up some glass, hopefully.
Neon.
Some neon. Get some neon going.
I don't even talk about that, but that'll be next time.
That's a whole nother egg to fry. We'll do that then. All right. Cheers. All right, man. I think that's the show.
That's good. Yeah, that's a lot of questions.
It was too many, so I had to kind of pare it down, and we got. It really only takes 2 or 3 to get going on something, and
because not too many platforms are provided for artists in this area for us to speak. So